Everything started with a phone call. Donald Trump's loud and threatening message to Canada's former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was not a discreet diplomatic discussion behind closed doors. Trump compared diverting Canadian water to the U.S. to turning on a very large faucet in a casual conversation. But this wasn't just a joke or casual remark. It was a sign that Trump saw Canada's water not as a shared resource, but as a backup tank for America's future needs.
President Donald Trump has publicly mused about diverting Canada's water to the U.S.
They have essentially a very large faucet.
Trump threatened to tear up the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement and other water-sharing accords on a February phone call with then Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, the New York Times reported.
Droughts in the Midwest have forced American agriculture into emergency mode, and the globe is witnessing the effects of that mindset in 2025. The Great Lakes region isn't just about water. It's also about economy and health, and over 40 million people rely on those lakes for drinking water alone. This isn't just a Canadian issue. It's a North American crisis in the making. Trump is once again blaming Canada instead of investing in sustainable solutions at home, and his team is quietly working to change water-sharing policies that have been in place since 1972.
The lakes and St. Lawrence Seaway are a crucial transportation corridor. The region supports a bustling tourism industry, including a multi-billion-dollar recreational and commercial fishery. Some 40 million people rely on the lakes for drinking water, and it is a major manufacturing hub. The Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement, first signed in 1972 and then modernized in 2012, is fundamental to the health of the Great Lakes.
Let's now discuss Mark Carney, Canada's new Prime Minister. He is aware of the stakes and understands that Canada cannot bear this pressure on its own, which is why he is speaking out and alerting Canadians to the fact that Trump's deregulation craziness is no longer only an American issue, but is spreading internationally. Here's the real twist, though. Years ago, Trump began to undermine the system by cutting funding to important U.S. environmental agencies, firing scientists, and repealing pollution laws. The safety nets that once shielded the Great Lakes from industrial disasters have been removed, and this isn't just a policy failure, it's intentional sabotage done for temporary political gain. Trump may believe that water comes into American pipes in one direction, while pollution travels in the opposite direction, and fish don't respect boundaries. His strategy is risky in addition to being dumb, and if Americans don't resist and Canada doesn't speak up, the next pristine drink of water may not be so clean after all in 2025. The hard questions that Americans are asking are, why are our lakes turning green, and why does our water taste like metal? The answer is found in a pattern of carelessness that started during Trump's first term and only got worse after he took office again. He not only talked about rerouting Canadian water, but he also destroyed the systems that safeguarded the U.S.'s water supply long before his second term. Trump also cut vital funding to environmental watchdogs like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. These organizations, which NOAA referred to as government fat, were in charge of monitoring mercury levels, toxic blooms, and pollution projections in the Great Lakes. When those teams were eliminated, the system lost its eyes and ears.
Looking at lake levels, looking at weather events, all of these things are, potentially in peril.
Deep cuts to staffing at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the Environmental Protection Agency, as well as a key research lab monitoring the health of the Great Lakes, imperil everything from water quality to forecasting of extreme weather events and predicting harmful algae blooms.
Let's not forget what happened in Toledo back in 2014 when a toxic algae bloom contaminated Lake Erie, causing the city's entire water supply to be shut down. This wasn't just a freak event, it was a warning. Now, in Trump's America of 2025, the warning algae blooms are returning stronger, earlier, and more toxic, and no one in power is raising the alarm. Meanwhile, Trump's policies on coal emissions and PAS chemicals, also known as forever chemicals, have made matters worse. These toxic substances are now showing up in fish throughout the Great Lakes region, slowly poisoning families who depend on local catch for their food. The White House is acting as though nothing is wrong, despite the obvious warning signs are everywhere. When we see more algae or higher concentrations of mercury in the food chain and the fish that people want to eat, it will only be a matter of time. Prime Minister Mark Carney is stepping in at this point.
In 2014, algae blooms in Lake Erie caused a major water crisis in Toledo that shut down the city's water supply.
So what it means is a degradation of water quality, which means degradation of economic quality and health quality in the Great Lakes region.
Trump is also rolling back regulations related to mercury and other toxic emissions from coal plants, as well as limits on forever chemicals called PFAS in both drinking water and manufacturing waste, already a serious problem for the Great Lakes.
It just is a matter of time as to when we see more algae, or higher concentrations of mercury in the food chain and the fish that people want to eat.
He's not only focused on diplomacy, he's also working with provincial leaders to invest in water preservation technologies, lake monitoring stations, and pollution tracking tools. Additionally, Trump is rolling back regulations related to mercury and other toxic emissions from coal plants, as well as limits on forever chemicals called PFAS in both drinking water and manufacturing waste. Even if Trump regards the Great Lakes like a private reservoir, Canada understands that they are a shared responsibility. However, Canada cannot accomplish this on its own, as Professor Harvey Scheer cautioned that pollution disregards borders and lakes. By mid-2025, Canada will be in a lonely battle, as Prime Minister Mark Carney has made it clear that the health of the Great Lakes cannot be left to handshake agreements and American promises, while Trump takes the stage boasting about America first and mocking environmental concerns. This is not just environmental carelessness. It is a deliberate dismantling of clean water protections that took decades to build, and the cost is already showing up in our taps, lakes, and bodies. Ontario doesn't care where mercury was dumped. It flows, spreads, and poisons everything in its path. Carney may be attempting to hold the line, but Trump's America keeps dragging the region backward. Canada must shoulder the dual responsibilities of safeguarding its own waterways and managing the consequences of Trump's carelessness. The unfortunate truth is that Canada remains vulnerable even if everything is done correctly. If you go down to Toronto Harbour now, it's practically unrecognizable. But according to Harvey Scheer, a professor at the University of Toronto, without the U.S., Canada would be left fighting against the current when it comes to managing Lake Ontario and the 3 other Great Lakes on our shared border lake. Therefore, when Trump removes environmental protections on the U.S. side, he's not just gambling with American health, he's actively endangering Canadians as well. The Great Lakes don't stop at the border. Whatever spills in New York or Michigan eventually floats into Ontario. What occurs in Rochester or Niagara Falls will have an effect on Ontario. Professor Harvey Scheer once said, "Pollution goes where it wants to go." And in the absence of cross-border collaboration, that's exactly what's occurring in New York, Oswego, or anywhere else. While Trump continues to press for water diversion, thereby depleting Canada's natural resources to alleviate American shortages, algae and industrial waste are freely flowing through the lakes. Fish populations are being wiped out, tourism is declining, and public trust in water safety is rapidly eroding. The Great Lakes were never intended to serve as America's backup reservoir. Rather, they represent a shared heritage founded on values of respect and collaboration. This is not only unfair, but also ridiculous. It's clear that the water goes where it goes, fish go where they go, algae go where they go, and pollution goes where it goes. If we don't safeguard this resource, our economy and health will suffer. Trump appears intent to bulldoze the reason for that. Alyssa Julie Worldwide News Mark in Toronto Carney isn't keeping quiet. He's speaking to the UN, holding emergency climate summits, and encouraging the provinces to fortify Canadian coastlines. However, let's face it, this is a conflict that Canada didn't request, and Trump is disregarding decades of meticulously crafted agreements in order to garner cheers at his rallies and make headlines in the partisan press. Worst of all, his supporters continue to believe that he is defending American interests, but what happens when the lakes run dry up and toxins infect both sides? There is no barrier that can stop contaminated water, and America's aggression is also America's self-destruction in this conflict. As nations confront climate emergencies together in 2025, it is now clear to the world that the United States under Donald Trump is abandoning its environmental responsibilities, posing a threat not only to itself, but also to its closest allies. Trump has chosen isolation, rejecting science, making fun of agreements, and treating shared resources like private property. Originally a representation of international collaboration, the Great Lakes are now a battlefield. Trump's deregulation policies have caused a great deal of outrage in the scientific and public health communities in the U.S. and Canada. What was once a quiet concern has turned into a full-blown alarm as the lakes are changing, fish are dying, and algae blooms are getting bigger every year. This indicates that the Great Lakes region's economic and health quality is declining, which led to a major water crisis in Toledo that shut down the city's water supply mark. Canada is investing in lake cleanups, green infrastructure, and climate-safe city design as part of Carney's administration's efforts to repair the harm. Once a polluted mess, Toronto Harbor has turned into a success story, but even that development is now in jeopardy because Trump doesn't simply walk away from deals. Instead, he drags the entire region backward. During the G7 climate summit earlier this year, Trump was the only leader to leave the freshwater emergency session. When asked why, he smiled and responded, "We've got the best water, don't worry about us." Trump's refusal to cooperate has also become a diplomatic embarrassment. But now that America is no longer viewed as a leader, but as a risk, everyone is concerned because Trump is not only ignoring the crisis, but is making it worse. Every rule he destroys breaks the dam. Every international agreement he shatters opens a new environmental gap. And Canada, for all its efforts, cannot hold the entire system together as citizens, voters, and neighbors. The question now is, how long will we allow one man to destroy the future of an entire region? The damage is not theoretical. It's floating in the lakes, it's dripping from a faucet, and unless there is significant change soon, Trump's legacy will be characterized by pollution rather than strength.